Call the City of Fairhope Board and Adjustment August 16th meeting to order. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our board to you. We'll start from the end.
Donna Cook.
Mike Ball.
Anil Vera.
Kathy Slagle.
Frank Lamia.
Thank you. So, our first order of business is approval of the minutes. Are there any changes or additions that need to be made?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes with no changes.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Our first order of business is BOA 21.08. It's a special exception for 805 Mobile Street, and we'll have staff tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, good afternoon.
Hi.
This is BOA 21.08, special exception request for 805 Mobile Street. Here we have our zoning map and our aerial map of the subject property. The property is zoned B1, local shopping district. The applicant is requesting a special exception to allow a restaurant at the property located at 805 South Mobile Street. Again, the property is zoned B1. According to the zoning ordinance, restaurants in B1 zoning districts may be permitted only on appeal by the Board of Adjustment and may be subject to special conditions. If approved, it should be noted that special exceptions are granted on a case-by-case basis and do not run with the land. So therefore, a new approval may be required if ownership or the scope of operations changes. Here you have a site plan of the existing conditions on the site, and also you have pictures that are showing the site in its current configuration. This is the proposed site plan that was submitted with the application. It should be noted that special exception requests are for the use. The proposed site plan is subject to change. We do want to note that because we did receive the site plan, we did look at parking, and according to the site plan, there is 160 seats, and our zoning ordinance requirement is one space for each 4 seats up to 52 seats, and then 1 space for each 6 seats thereafter. So therefore, they are showing 55 parking spaces on the site, and that is 17 spaces too many. That's just something to note. Again, this site plan is subject to change, but we just wanted to make that note. Staff reviewed the application under the guidelines found in Article 2, C3E regarding special exceptions. The applicant submitted a narrative explaining their intention to renovate the interior and exterior of the existing building. The previous use was a restaurant at this location, and the proposed restaurant will be in similar style. Additionally, the applicant intends to keep the existing building footprint. The approval shall comply with all city regulations, including but not limited to the zoning ordinance and the tree ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends the Board of Zoning Adjustment approve Case 21.08, subject to the following conditions: submission of a revised site plan illustrating compliant parking and tree protection prior to the issuance of a business license. And that is all that I have, unless you have any questions.
Board members, I will say we did receive 3 email, letter, and a phone call, so we completed the gambit. The concerns, 2 of the 3 loved the idea of a restaurant there. Were concerned with noise at night from bands or something like that late at night, and a couple had concerns about rodents, the rodent control from previous restaurants. One person did just say no to, didn't recommend doing anything. We do think that this has been many restaurants. The use is appropriate. What they're doing is appropriate. It is, and got a chance to meet the applicant before the meeting. If there is a a desire to from the board, there could be a restriction on live music outside or music outside after a certain hour. So 9, 10 p.m. if you want to make that condition. We do have a city ordinance, but it would help everyone understand what the limitations are. Because the city ordinance is something the police just get called on and have to go and police that over and over. So if everybody knows kind of what the rules are, I think that's fair to play with. Everybody knows what the rules are and what they can do. And I don't believe the applicant has a problem with that limitation, but we'll certainly let them speak to it. I do want to also just mention a few things, just to help the applicant what will happen should the board approve this, they'll have to come in for a building permit for the renovations. And we'll look at that with the zoning ordinance, tree ordinance, all the city regulations. Just a couple of notes we have that does not have to be approved by this, but the dumpster enclosures there, we'll have to meet the tree ordinance. So there's a few really nice oaks around the building, and trimming those will require arborists and working with our horticulture department. There is buffers required against adjacent property. They meet that. So just preserving those, it's okay to clean up, but preserving those are there. There are a couple of lights in the parking lot. I think one's actually masthead kind of hanging down. So parking lot lighting is appropriate for the parking lot, but should be shielded from the adjacent residential neighbors. Like Samara said, the parking is a little over our requirement or allowable, and there was one tree that's not shown on the plan. Want to make sure that one stays. It's a nice live oak. It's a younger live oak, but that's in the median, the planting strip in between the parking spaces, closer to the building. It wasn't shown on the plan, but want to make sure that one is preserved as well.
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
If this special exemption is approved, a drive-through is still off the books, right? You can't put a drive-through on this restaurant.
You can make that as a condition of approval.
It's in, I think it's in B.
It's in here.
It's in
Okay.
B1, I'm just saying.
Then yes, if it's not allowed in B1, I'm sorry, if it doesn't allow, then that would not be allowed. And I don't believe that was proposed. It's not. It's here.
Okay, and then the existing footprint with outdoor deck, does this lock it into, I mean, they said in their stuff that they intend to stay within the existing footprint. Does this mean that they'd have to come back, if they chose to expand it, they'd have to come back?
No, what this board is approving is the use. So there is the potential for it to slightly change and as long as it's meeting all the other regulations. So we're not approving a site plan, so no, we're not here for a site plan review. So it could be that it's approved, but as long as it's kind of in substantial agreement of what's shown here, they wouldn't have to come back if, let's say they added a back porch for a covered walkway for ADA accessibility or something along those lines. If when we get a building permit and it's a 2-story Chuck E. Cheese, we'll probably bring it back. So, there's a limit but as long as it's in substantial performance of what they're presenting, we want the flexibility to let them
Okay.
kind of manage that.
I have a question. The letters mention the noise of dishes, things like that. So this would come under the noise ordinance of the Fairhope plan?
Yes. So the noise ordinance is a standalone ordinance, not outside of the planning regulations. This is a property within the Fairhope city limits, so that does apply to them. The way that noise ordinance is it's complaint driven. So a neighbor would have to pick up the phone, call the police. The police would come out, actually visually inspect and see that there is noise. And not saying this applicant would. We've had a few that keep kind of, police go away, they turn the music back up. Well, that kind of becomes a burden, and really the only way that gets worked out is going through the court system. That's outside of planning. So
Okay.
I think if everyone's in agreement to kind of set a limit on outdoor music, speakers or live music, that might alleviate some concerns. because we are adjacent to residential property on two sides.
Yeah.
What authority do we have to promote that in consideration that there is an existing ordinance? I mean,
So on the standalone ordinance, nothing really, but because we're here for a special exception instead of a variance, special exceptions can be granted with conditions. And there's not too much there's very little limitations on those conditions that you can place. So if noises are a concern, you can institute this sunset, or whatever clause. It could be, you could say, as long as this is in substantial completion of the proposed site plan, that could be a condition. So there are conditions that this board can make on top of the.
okay, so, and I'm sorry to those in attendance that were learning this, several of us are new, me for sure. So are you suggesting, and I'm not proposing this the way I feel, but are you suggesting that we could make as a condition a noise, you said sunset, so a time during the evening when the noise would stop, as opposed to what is already a city ordinance? That, to me, that, it's a little confusing.
It is. So like I said, the noise ordinance is complaint driven, but if there's kind of instructions, and what I would recommend is the applicant's here, so is the architect. We can talk before the public hearing. We can speak. So we do have someone from the public. We can open the public hearing and get hear back from them, and then after we can talk that through with the applicant and see what hours would work, if they would mind that condition.
Okay, so you're saying the ordinance as it's written today is not a time? I live downtown, I've always wondered what it is, because I'm entertained all hours of the, night.
It does have some a time there, I believe it starts at 7 a.m., construction can't get
Right,
started.
right.
until
Got that,
7
yeah,
a.m. And so there is a time limit,
I think it's 10
at
p.m.
10 p.m.
10 p.m., okay, that's what, so
So-
there is an established
Right.
time when the noise ordinance today in the city of Fairhope is in effect. So if you call before that, they say, sorry, it's not applicable yet. If it's after that time, say
Correct.
10, then they go and take care of it.
And it references a decibel level.
Right, it's a
Right.
So they have to
decimal-driven.
come over and.
Right, with a
go to
decimal
the
meter
person
and- yeah,
complaining,
yeah,
get the
yeah.
decimal meter out. This just more clearly says here, don't have outdoor music after, 9, 10 p.m., whatever it says, and everybody understands what those rules are. So it doesn't, there's a little bit more risk to the applicant. Instead of just being a complaint here, you could run the risk of your use.
I see.
So, and not to say that the applicant would, no way implying
Okay.
that.
So, saying again, we could impose a condition on this approval that there is no live music after 9 p.m. if we wanted to.
That's correct.
Is live music planned as part of the initial?
No, actually, we just had an opportunity, and they, applicant just informed me, they don't like that anyway, so the
Yeah.
conversation is, but I think it would be good to kind of hear from them and what their plan is to,
Okay.
kind of present.
Is there any other questions?
No.
This
And-
time, we would like the applicant to come and speak, and if you'll state your name for us for this been recording.
Tyler Hood.
Okay.
Tyler, can you just give a little bit of idea of what restaurant food, what your vision is?
Yeah, we're from Louisiana, so our goal is to do some sort of Louisiana Cajun cuisine. The building kind of calls for a quaint mom and pop feel with, it's going to feel like a house still. Like he mentioned, I'm not a fan of live music while people are eating. I find it detrimental to conversation and loud music in general. We are fans of music while people are eating because it helps with ambiance. We've engaged Gary Ickes. I believe he's done some work in the area with y'all before. As an arborist, we love trees. I mean, the thing that attracted us to the property were the trees. They were the huge selling point with the building and what we want to do. So,
Is this open for lunch and dinner, or breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
we usually don't do breakfast, so lunch and dinner is our plan currently.
Okay.
What type of lighting do you plan to use in the parking lot?
I'm honestly not educated enough to speak of that. I mean, in some places they want a lot of lighting so people don't trip and fall, and obviously in other situations it's next to residential areas and they don't want light pollution. And so trying to find a mix that works for everybody. Again, I don't know what the best fit is, but I'm sure somebody will tell us.
Yeah, and that, they do have an engineer that's working on those plans, Chris Lieb, and he will be, what our zoning requirement requires is a foot candle, so your lighting in the parking lot, so there's no trip and falls are there, but also shielded, you can shield lights nowadays. There are currently 2 existing mastheads, I think one untamed, so they'll probably be replaced, I would imagine, and they're the big halogens, probably drive your power bill up, so I would imagine there's some, we do have height limits, so 20-foot high, so we're not getting into the neighbor and they have to be shielded. So there's quite a few options.
Yeah, LEDs are what we've gone with recently since they're cheaper and more cost efficient. You can also make them warmer and less polluting and harsh.
We were out at Jesse's Friday night. They have some really nice, parking lot lights that are, that do a nice job of providing that, but still not being a problem on the neighbors.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Appreciate it. Thank you. We'll now open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against this project? If you'll come up and state your name for us. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Amanda Green Mitchell, 32 Bay Point Court, Fairhope. And my backyard looks right into the Winsells, or whatever it's going to be now. Just concerning the noise, we had a really good relationship with Winsells when it was there, and we did have music. And they were very respectful about 9 o'clock, party was over. We never had a problem. I mean, I can still go in my front yard and I can hear the jam at the Legion, which does go on sometimes too long, but it's all good. We're excited. The lights in the parking lot, yeah, let's make sure that we keep those away from our hood. And yeah, your rodents too. They ate my sprinkler last year. They got in my box, and they came from Winsells. Other than that, I mean, we're all for it. The people in my neighborhood, we're a small neighborhood, we are very excited that a restaurant is coming back, because otherwise some of us might starve. And if you could have oysters at 4 o'clock and beer, that would be awesome. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak for or against it? We'll close the public portion. Oh, excuse me.
A little slow on the get up. Mr. Chairman, members, I'm William Bruce at 163 Cypress Lane in Fairhope. I'm here to speak in favor of the applicant. He's a guy I've known for several years now, and actually eaten in several of his restaurants in South Louisiana. They put out good food with excellent service, and I have no financial interest in it at all, but I do know that this gentleman and his company are well capitalized, and I think they will be a really welcome addition to the restaurant scene in Fairhope. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and thank you all for the great job you've been doing over the years.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak for or against it? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Is there any questions for this board when it comes up?
You'll have to still guide me as we work through this and say, no, it's not appropriate. Given that they don't plan, and first of all, welcome, and we are excited to have you here, and I can't wait to dine with you. I pass that building twice every day and can't wait to see something happening there. If we do have concern from the neighborhood about noise, and if you don't intend to have live music, it would seem to be a reasonable win-win to make a condition of the approval that live music would cease at 9 p.m.
Okay. So is your motion to it?
I would make a motion
approval?
to approve it with that condition, 9 p.m.
9 p.m. Okay. Do I-
cease of live music.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we need to put that in there if we're just issuing a special exception for a restaurant at that? I mean, I hate to over-limit what is going to take place, but I guess that's, I mean, is it necessary to put that in?
It's at your discretion, so.
It is
As
if
the-
you want to limit it to 9 o'clock, right?
I mean, is 9 o'clock arbitrary? What time does the restaurant close?
That's, is it arbitrary? Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
you
it
know,
seems
the-
like we're just pulling straws.
I'll interject. I mean, our plan is, I think, maybe to stay open a little bit later than some of the places here. You know, I see a lot of places closing at 8:30. And we probably will try to stay open until 10 o'clock, but we have no plans for live music. So if that makes the neighborhood feel better, we want to be good neighbors, and I have no issue with that, especially since it doesn't follow the land, and I have absolutely no issue with the live music.
Well, in my recommendation, that is why I asked the questions earlier, because I was confused about the ordinance versus making it a condition. But again, I live downtown, whether it's, I don't want to pick on anybody, pick one of the music places. I can hear them all every night, it's fine. But that's downtown. If we're backing up to a neighborhood, backing up people's property, 9 o'clock to me seems reasonable.
And everyone has best intentions. If this did change hands and somebody said, well, let's have my live music because we're having a little problem getting people in, I don't think that's an issue. But it makes our job of the enforcement of things easier if we know the use is riding with that condition, that it's been considered. And, noise at this stage, when the uses of getting approved was considered, and we're thinking maybe 9 p.m. is arbitrary. But that helps us instead of just the police having to deal with it and it not being tied to the use, because that's just a general noise ordinance.
Right.
That could be
We already
somebody
have a
who's-
noise ordinance in place in Fairhope, so
Right.
how is this changing that?
Well, when so the enforcement in the noise ordinance is, you might get a warning, you might get a second warning, you might be just below the decimal level, but still keeping people up at night because it's closer to, and then it kind of goes through the courts and
I know, but I'm
Yeah.
saying, is this
This has more teeth.
necessary?
It has more teeth because the use is on the line. So it helps.
It's not arbitrary any longer. It's,
Right.
you're playing music
It
after
is
9.
tied to planning. We
That's
get
it.
involved as well and can say, well, the use as discussed and approved, we considered noise. It's not just an arbitrary,
Right.
if somebody gets a complaint. I mean, yes, I can get a complaint on me in my residential house. This would be the same idea, but it wouldn't limit the use. It would just be penalties under whatever that law allows. So you pay a $500 fine, keep running with your live music, it's worth it. Somebody can make that call. It's worth it to have a live band and pay the $500 fine. And that system, and the court system, can eventually escalate to somebody losing their business license. This is just a cleaner, if it did happen to change hands or it's under new direction and they brought that in, it's just a matter, hopefully it's 10 years down the road and we say, hey, when this was approved, it was considered about music and, you can't do that. So it's just clear what the instructions are. But it's up to the board. I mean, the board votes you know, and if you don't like that condition, certainly don't
It
have to
seems like
vote.
we already have that taken care of with our noise ordinance, and to add more layers, seems like it's going to complicate things. And if they did have, want to have a private party, I mean, with COVID, there's lots of fluid changes going on right now, so I hate to box them in when we already have something in place, is my opinion.
But I do think it's important that we include this revised site plan for the parking, which apparently has already been started, and we include the tree protection prior to the issuance of the business license. That should be included in the approval.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor from Mike. Do we have a second?
You want to have him repeat what it is going to be?
Sure, I can do that very well, adding what you just stated. The motion would be to approve the plan subject to meeting the compliant parking and tree protection language in the
So for
building
the
permit.
motion, if I
Please.
may, you can say recommend with staff recommendations.
Okay.
And that'll cover anything we put.
Okay.
And then if you add anything, you can add
Okay.
that language.
Make the motion to approve the request, subject to meeting the staff's recommendations, approval from there. I also include in my motion the 9 o'clock curfew, whatever you want to call it, the end of live music at 9 p.m., because it's in a residential neighborhood.
Do we have a second for that motion?
Okay.
So no second, so the motion fails. So do we have another motion?
I would make a motion that we approve the special exception 21.08 with the staff recommended conditions.
Do I have a second for that?
I second.
Okay, we will take a roll call vote. We'll start at the end. Donna?
Aye.
I'm not, this is my
Okay.
first time I need to ask a question, so I'm not voting, I don't want to vote no because I have the other motion.
So your motion.
Your motion
what-
is
what-
dead.
I know.
So are you okay with approving it
I'm
without
okay,
the-
okay,
the-
okay.
without the noise ordinance kind of part?
And it's
portion of
it's a
it?
4-vote requirement, right?
Correct.
So there's 5 of us and 4 vote.
Correct.
I'll vote no.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. All right. All right, thank you. So is there any old or new business?
Did everybody get a copy of the contact list from Alex?
No.
No, she's working on it.
Okay. Okay, but you did get the ones that, just to check to make sure your contact information, okay?
Okay, so we got that. And is there a meeting for next month?
There was something on my desk when I got back in this after lunch. Was that an application? So we will have one case.
One meeting, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
We do.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you.
Congratulations.